people. Welcome back to another episode of Stars and Garters. I'm Katie Pettit, and this movie that I am reviewing is not a movie that I was expecting to review at all or have any substantive thoughts on in general. I just went to go see it with my mom because we watched the first one together many moons ago, and it was fun summer bonding time, and that is what I am here to do for the summer. But I came away from this movie having many more thoughts than I thought I would. So, of course, if you bothered to read the title of this episode, you know that the movie in question is The Devil Wears Prada 2, of all things. So, I remember very little about the first Devil Wears Prada movie. I just remember that I liked it, and that I like Anne Hathaway as an actor in general. I didn't remember as like this amazing, iconic thing, although I know it is to many people. But this is a movie about a fashion magazine, and you may be shocked to hear this, but I personally am not that interested in fashion, actually. So I remembered it was funny at some points, but it wasn't like, wow, this is top tier movie right here. But going into the second one, I just wanted to watch it with my mom. I thought it would be a fun activity. One of the first things about The Devil Wears Prada 2 that reminded me why I did like the first one was that the main character, Andy, Anne Hathaway's character, is a journalist, which I had forgotten completely about the first movie. And I myself am actually hoping to be a journalist when I graduate. And even though that fact, that angle that the movie has made it a bit more intriguing to me, I still kind of thought, okay, it's just like a Hollywood cash grab sequel. And, the bit is that Miranda Priestley is mean and Andy is nice, and that's kind of funny. And it was a little bit before the halfway point of the movie that I realized this movie might actually be a little more than a Hollywood cash grab sequel. And even if it is, it kind of has something to say that's actually meaningful and relevant. So, making a movie about journalism in culture is going to be a bit of a gamble considering how up in the air just the career of journalism is today, and it always runs the risk of getting too preachy no matter what your stance on the digital age in general. The Devil Wears Prada 2, however, had some very important and good things to say on the subject, and they honestly did it with an impressive amount of nuance. So, the whole story, Andy, very quickly after getting her job back at the runway, realizes that she's gonna have to fight to keep the human intellect and integrity in her writing, because the heads of the industry only care about what makes people click. And throughout the ins and outs of the business of running the magazine, Andy and Miranda clash on the business aspect. What ultimately unites them is desiring to preserve human art that exists to say something and not simply sell something with the least amount of effort. So, this movie was really effective in bringing to mind the conversation about the digitization of art, and of course the inevitable discussion of AI in art, without just shoving it right in your face. Now, I think it's almost a little risky sharing my opinions on AI because I know it's a topic that many people have very strong opinions about, and I know that this is one where everybody draws the line in a different place, and since it is about art and art is subjective, it's hard to say that there's a clear moral objective line in this subject. But of course I'm gonna share my opinions on it anyway because this is what the podcast is for. So, my dad works in digital learning, and we've had many discussions about AI, and I'm definitely not 100% against the use of AI. Heck, I use AI to make my thumbnails now, and I think there are some things that AI can be very useful for, even though it's obviously, sometimes it's just not good, because it's still pretty new, all things considered. But I think it can make a lot of people's jobs easier. I think there are a lot of moral and good uses for AI. There's one thing that I absolutely draw the line on in terms of AI use, and that is art. As a writer, art in general is very precious to me, and on an even deeper note, it's very important to me as a Christian, because as I've thought a lot about what art means in a general sense, it took me a long time to come to the realization that God is the originator of creativity. And one of the most obvious ways that we are made in his image is the fact that we are able to create art. 1 Peter 4:10 even says, "As each has received a gift, use it to serve one another as good stewards of God's varied grace." And some ways he has showed his varied grace is by giving us the gift of art, some of us. And AI is not art, full stop. So I think I know a lot of people probably use AI to create like goofy little stories or pictures in their free time. I do sometimes, and I don't think that's wrong, but it's not art. It should never be portrayed as art. I have no problem with somebody wanting to make those things for fun, for themselves, as long as they know that they are not creating art. I think AI can be addictive if you start using it to completely replace art in your life. There was a point very recently in my life where AI, among other things, almost like stole my love of stories for me. And something that my mom talks about a lot is that we, as people, should be producing something. We should have a thing in our lives where we are making something. And even if we don't have creative talents necessarily, it doesn't have to be making something creative, but we should not just be consumers. Although consuming isn't wrong, we've been giving things to enjoy in this life, but we should also be producing. And AI, putting a prompt into an AI is not producing, it's not productive. And I think that the movie Devil Wears Prada 2 again does a very good job of bringing up these issues in a manner that works very well with the storytelling, so it doesn't feel in your face, but it also is very thought provoking. If you're somebody who is prone to thinking about these issues, it does a really good job of like bringing them to mind. So specifically, the scene when Miranda is talking to the guy who basically says none of what she does is going to matter soon because it'll all be replaced by AI, and she asks him that if he thinks that the value of human art will live on. It highlights the contrast between a creative like Miranda, who, though she clearly has plenty of flaws in the movie, it's kind of the bit, she still has her intellect and her determination and her inspiration, while the man who she's talking to is portrayed as a very dumb character in the movie who doesn't have much agency in his life. I'm not going to say everyone who uses AI, who thinks of AI art as real art, is dumb. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that completely replacing anything productive in your life with AI is not going to cultivate your intellect. And the unfortunate part to all of this is that there are almost as many people who think like that man as there are people who will firmly stand against soulless art. I don't work for any important tech companies, and I'm really not in any position where I have the power to do something about this. But I will at least say here that there needs to be some firmer restrictions, not necessarily on the existence of AI, so to speak, but more on the use of AI in the place of art and in the place of hard work where it should be entirely human made. Was in an American Lit class last semester, and there were some students in my class who were using ChatGPT to write 250 word discussion question answers. And if you are at the point where you can't even scrounge up 250 words to answer a discussion question, I think you need to reevaluate your work ethic. AI should not be used to write published stories or replace real artists or build someone's music career. It should not be used to replace human art at all. 2 Thessalonians 3:10 says, "For even when we were with you, we would give you this command: if anyone is not willing to work, let him not eat." Again, using AI is not work, and it is not art, and we should not pretend that it is so. And I just haven't seen a movie bring this thought to mind like recently, which is just interesting since it's so relevant of a topic and since it's this movie of all things. So overall, just a review of the movie in general. A movie about fashion has an entire scene where a bunch of models walk around in very interesting clothing choices as Lady Gaga sings a song in the background it was never going to be a perfect 5 out of 5 stars from me. However, I think this movie could give creatives like me a little bit of hope, because even in Hollywood, there are people who can at least understand the value of human art enough to put it somewhere in their movie and to actually put thought into the storytelling aspect of it and do well with it. Weird review to do, but it made me have thoughts. So, you guys get those thoughts. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to subscribe and follow and comment, and make sure to share the pod with your friends. And I will see you guys next time. Bye bye.